Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, at the outset, I wish to thank you for accommodating my request. Naka. Honorable Prime Minister, fellow Cabinet Ministers, and Honorable Members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to speak in support of the 2022-2023 National Budget delivered by the Honorable Minister of Economy and Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me join my government colleagues and congratulate the Honorable Attorney General and Minister for Economy and his team, led by Mr. Sri Gounder, for a smart, sustainable and fit for purpose budget. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to make a few general comments before I turn to specific remarks relating to the areas of employment, productivity, industrial relations, youth and sports that falls under my ministerial portfolio. Mr. Speaker, sir, this budget is a profound and a solid vision of our Honorable Prime Minister and our government in ensuring that we deliver the best to all Fijians, despite the impact of COVID-19 that was felt heavily in our small island nation. Added to this, Mr. Speaker, sir, the current Russia-Ukraine conflict is having a major impact on our economy and also to the livelihood of our people. Mr. Speaker, sir, despite this external pressure, this budget builds on the strong foundation laid out in previous budgets under this government. Mr. Speaker, sir, the projection of 12.4% economic growth this year is another milestone achievement for our government. It gives us confidence in planning for the future. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, sir, the members from the opposition side failed to accept these figures. The opposition's views lack substance or any form of informed intelligence to back any of their claims. Mr. Speaker, sir, this budget is an impressive documentation of our consolidation and recovery that underlines how this government has dealt with the external or global and internal challenges through these difficult times. Mr. Speaker, sir, today we are proud to say that the Bula Boom is already being felt by our nation. It is unfortunate that our opposition does not have any vision for this nation. They are only concerned about petty issues, while the FijiFirst Government has carefully crafted this budget for the betterment and well-being of all Fijians. Mr. Speaker, sir, this budget is a solid indicator of our Honorable Prime Minister's leadership and the commitment that we all should put our people first in our agenda. FijiFirst Government has stood by all Fijians during various crises, whether it be natural disasters, effects of climate change, or the COVID-19 pandemic. We stand united with our people and will continue to deliver the best for all Fijians. Mr. Speaker, sir, the FijiFirst Government, through the visionary and responsible leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, will not be stopped by the short-sighted and ridiculous ideas floating from the opposition just to please a few, or overblown ideas to massage their inflated egos. Through reforms, we have taken government services right to the doorsteps, Mr. Speaker, sir, of all Fijians, no matter where they are, and we will continue to serve our people and place them in the center of our reforms. As we have done during these past 2 terms in office, Mr. Speaker, sir, as a progressive, inclusive, and people-focused government that puts Fiji and its people first every time. Mr. Speaker, sir, I now turn to specific remarks relating to the areas of employment, productivity, industrial relations, youth and sports that falls under my ministerial portfolio. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the recent Pacific Island Forum meeting, I met the Honorable Prime Minister of Australia when he visited the APTC aged care pilot program that prepares our Fijian candidates to meet the industry standards in Australia. The Australian Prime Minister stated that there is a high demand for aged care workers because Australia's high aging population. Mr. Speaker said, when our borders were reopened in December last year, there was a lot of noise from the opposition, except Honorable Bulitavu, that a wrong decision has been made. This is when, Mr. Speaker said, we began to meet the demands in Australia and New Zealand for our workers. Mr. Speaker said, at this juncture, may I also congratulate our Honorable Prime Minister for bringing the unity among the Pacific family. Mr. Speaker said, today I stand in this August House to announce that another milestone has been achieved under the Vu Valley Partnership, which was signed by the FijiFirst Government and the Australian Government. A total of 1,820 Fijians, exceeding the estimate target of 1,000, are now participating under the Pacific Australia Labour Mobility Programme from January this year 2022 to the first week of July 2022 alone. But in total, Mr. Speaker said, we have 5,986 for the PLS and the seasonal work for Australia and New Zealand. Mr. Speaker said this is a huge positive outcome that ensures that our economic recovery starts sooner rather than later, following the reopening of Fiji's borders in December 2021. Mr. Speaker said it means that thousands of Fijians households have a long-term and secure source of income with great spin-off benefits to local communities and businesses. While these schemes are greatly welcome, Mr. Speaker said, my ministry will be proactive in ensuring that our own employment market is maintained to meet our own labour market demands. This means following through on the measures for skills training for greater local employment ability in this budget. This budget, Mr. Speaker said, 2022-2023, as the Honourable Attorney General has outlined in detail, means we will build on our recovery and not simply have reactivate measures to external pressures through the continued impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing conflict in Europe. Mr. Speaker said, this also means that we must be innovative and creative in using our resources to sustain ourselves better despite ongoing global conditions that make it difficult for us. Mr. Speaker said, I will outline some of these innovations among our youth and in the sporting arena later in my presentation. As outlined, Mr. Speaker said, in the budget, the starting point is the cutting of the budget deficit almost into half. This makes for a smart budget for its vision and financial planning to continue to look after all Fijians and at the same time build our economy in a sustainable and a fit-for-purpose manner. By continuing the wide range of tax benefits, Mr. Speaker said, and improved policy and structural conditions for the business, the ball is now firmly in the court of the business sector to continue the post-pandemic recovery. Mr. Speaker said, and in this regard, the Ministry of Employment, Productivity and Industrial Relations will continue to play a positive role in supporting both sides of the economic equation equally for the employers and the employees. Mr. Speaker said the Ministry has enforced the compliance to the national minimum wages and the 10 sectoral-based minimum wages. This ensures employers pay the right wages to their workers with effective audits conducted by the compliance officers at the Ministry. As announced in the revised budget, Mr. Speaker said 2021-2022, the national minimum wage rates and the 10 sectoral-based minimum wage rate was set to be increased in 4 stages. Mr. Speaker said the first 2 have already been implemented on the 1st April 2022 and 1st July 2022, while the other 2, Mr. Speaker said, will be implemented on the 1st October 2022 and 1st January 2023. Mr. Speaker said increasing the national minimum wage to $4 per hour is a great achievement of this government. Mr. Speaker said this will ensure that we will continue to enforce the minimum terms and conditions of employment and engage in good faith employment relations with employers and workers. Mr. Speaker said the increase in the FNPF contribution to workers' wages is another step in the right direction that will help workers save more through their FNPF contribution for a secured future. Mr. Speaker said, I am surprised with the comment from the National Secretary of the Fiji Trade Union Congress on his recent media statement on why FNPF contribution was not restored to its original level. Mr. Speaker said it seems that he fails to understand the meaning of recovery may be to attract media attention. He is ignoring the fact that 92% of the employees in the formal sector are back to work compared to the pre-COVID levels. And I hope that he reads the budget address in a fair manner to appreciate and know exactly what FijiFirst Government is doing to benefit all workers in this country, Mr. Speaker said. Mr. Speaker said the 2 million initiative announced for the Stronger Together Job Support Scheme for 1,500 out-of-work Fijian is an excellent opportunity for our Fijian workers to secure employment, at the same time help the industry to grow. Mr. Speaker said the rebranding of TVET to skills qualification is an excellent move that will attract more students to take up skills qualification at the tertiary training institutions and at the same time assist in the skills shortage faced at the industry level. Mr. Speaker said, we also welcome the effort in extending the employment tax scheme till December 2024 with a 300% tax deduction of the amount of any salary or wages paid for the first-time workers. In particular, Mr. Speaker said the tax deduction of 400% for the salary and wages paid to the persons with disability who is employed for a period of 3 years. And Mr. Speaker, this is another positive and inclusive step in narrowing the employment ability gap of persons with disability. Mr. Speaker said we encourage and support social dialogue as an effective mechanism paving the way to bring about resolutions to disputes and conflicts amongst disputing parties. Unlike what I read in the newspaper, Honorable Lavere misleading this House yesterday about the compliance. Mr. Speaker said this will strengthen the consultation and cooperation between workers and employers within the labour market. Mr. Speaker said I commend the Minister of Economy for the allocation for improved productivity. On 13 June 2019, Fiji launched its first ever Fiji National Productivity Master Plan 2021-2036. Productivity is an important agenda, Mr. Speaker said, for all developing countries and is an effective way for constant improvement and economic growth. Mr. Speaker said we welcome the allocated budget for the Ministry of Youth and Sports. This continued level of funding during these difficult times is testament to the importance that FijiFirst Government has given and will continue to provide for the youth and sports. As the Honourable Attorney General has outlined, over 70% of Fiji's population can be classified as youth, and it stands to reason that with this youthful population, Mr. Speaker said, and the support from the other not-so-youthful demographic, Fiji is also a great and growing sporting nation. Mr. Speaker said the key focus areas for the Ministry remains in youth and sports, development programs. Budget submission for 2022-2023 is aligned closely to these areas and continuing to drive government's agenda that development programs developed and managed by the Ministry is made available to all eligible Fijians and it is inclusive. Mr. Speaker says as we continue to grow this sector and this sector grows on its own accord, we will focus on new game plans that consider the socio-economic impact on angles to this growth. Mr. Speaker said this means that we need to move towards development models that are in touch with global developments. Sport is now big business, Mr. Speaker said. While we work on and achieve our goals in that direction, as a responsible ministry of a responsible government, we will not forget the small picture that is sport is for all. Mr. Speaker said we will ensure that our local communities and community sports gets all the attention and care that it deserves. In terms of youth development, Mr. Speaker said, initiatives with an allocation of 516,000, the Ministry continues to work with youth groups. This includes providing empowerment and development training programs and initiatives to enable young people in our Fijian communities, Mr. Speaker said. We must realize the potential they have in the vast unutilized land and local resources. And we have found that the Youth Farm initiative, while providing immediate relief during the worst of COVID, is a viable means of growing this sector beyond that. It is now grown into a long-term and sustainable project that provides food security, economic opportunities, and gainful employment and employment creation opportunities, Mr. Speaker said. Mr. Speaker said the Ministry also intends to increase youth enrollment into our TVET, as we see this is as a meeting local employment needs in key areas, as well as continuing a workforce that is work ready for initiatives such as the Pacific Labour Mobility Scheme. Mr. Speaker says sports as an enabler of sustainable development has continued economic impact, not least through sporting remittance, but also through the growth of Fiji as a regional sporting powerhouse. This has included the hosting of a growing range of Oceania-level sports, as well as more international events that bring in revenue, recognition and promotion of brand Fiji, as well as Sports Fiji. Mr. Speaker said we will continue to grow in this area. Mr. Speaker said from a sports development point of view, the key focus of government is to continue to invest in local infrastructure. The growth of high-profile Fijian sports people and our sporting teams in the last decade also has been among other factors due to the investment by this government as local-level infrastructure. We will continue to upgrade of existing facilities and development of new facilities across Fiji to enable all Fijians to have access to world-class facilities to maximize participation of all Fijians in sports. This will also involve working with a range of development partners to promote inclusive sporting programs. In particular, Mr. Speaker, say in terms of gender inclusivity and promotion of women and girls in sports. Fiji continues to be the leader in the Pacific region in terms of promotion of gender equality. This has seen women participation continues to increase on a yearly basis, with notable achievement for women in sports being the bronze medal won by the Fijian Sevens at the recent Tokyo Olympic Games, and the Fijian 15s women claiming the 2022 Super Rugby Women's Competition, Mr. Speaker said. Mr. Speaker said the competition of the teams and others, such as the Fiji Women's Soccer and Netball team, shows that this program has great reach across Fiji, including the remote and maritime areas, and is not restricted to narrow urban corridors, Mr. Speaker said. Again, this is a result of the combined effort with the National Sporting Association for promotion of sports across Fiji with equal opportunities and access for all Fijians, Mr. Speaker said. Mr. Speaker said, considering the power of sports in community building, the Ministry has worked closely with the Fiji National Sports Commission in empowering communities to take ownership of sport. The Commission, through government funding, have helped set up 46 community sports associations around the country. Mr. Speaker said the Community Sports Association is an association of members of registered youth clubs, single and multi-sports clubs, and work together to facilitate community sports and physical activities. Mr. Speaker said government is providing funding this year for this community sports association to grow and lead the revival of community and Tikina provincial-based competition with a multi-sports focus. Mr. Speaker said this 3.81 billion blueprint by the FijiFirst Government only reassures that people and their rights, needs and aspirations are at the heart of our economy. It is a people-centered budget, Mr. Speaker said, a kind, considerate, yet robust budget designed to heal, build and consolidate a prosperous, peaceful and progressive Fiji for all Fijians. Mr. Speaker said, I have been in this parliament for the last 8 years, and this is the first time I have observed the opposition member making a point of order against our opposition member of his own colleague. In fact, it's a very historical day. It's a very historical day. And that, I'll tell you what's the problem. The only thing that I can make out, Mr. Speaker says, that they are totally confused, they are divided, and the worst thing is that they don't have any trust in each other. They are the ones who want to run the country. It's a shame. Not only that, I've even heard they were shouting, saying, time's up, time's up, time's up, to his own colleague. Mr. Speaker said, it's really a sad day for the opposition. Mr. Speaker said, I thank this August House for the privilege to speak, and I fully support the motion to approve the 2022-2023 national budget. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.